Here we go.
Alrighty, well, the North Face, what an awesome brand. Thank you so much for coming to Accelerate. And man, you guys do so much across so many different places and such an iconic brand. We're gonna hear from Jimmy Chin. He's a brand ambassador for you guys. We're gonna hear from him tomorrow. So, hey, congratulations. How is it working at such an iconic brand, by the way?
You know, it's almost cheesy, I think, the way that I talk about working for the North Face. I've been in the outdoor industry my whole career. The North Face is just such a great culture. People are very passionate. And you know, we all just really love what we do. We love each other. So it's one big family. So I feel very lucky.
Yeah, and for brands that aren't aware of this, I don't know how many people, I'm sure everyone is, but talk about the VF kind of family as a whole, because it's not just the North Face. There are multiple amazing brands, including these fun Accelerate vans here that I've got. Like, tell us a little bit about that and the dynamic between the different companies. You learn from each other, but yet maintain pretty distinct identities.
Sure, yeah. So VF Corporation owns the North Face and several other outdoor brands. And we actually, the North Face was headquartered in San Francisco for years. And then about 3.5 years ago, we moved to Denver, and all of the outdoor brands, or most of them, all kind of came into one office in Denver. And so, yeah, it's Vans, Timberland, those still are in California and New Hampshire, but we have Ultra, JanSport, Icebreaker, Smartwool, and the North Face, all based in Denver.
Yeah, the mothership now,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's fantastic. And tell everyone a little bit about your role. What do you do day to day? What keeps you busy? What is kind of your remit?
Yeah, sure. So I got hired at the North Face to execute an Amazon strategy. That was about 4.5 years ago. We really weren't doing anything on Amazon, or we had a lot of products on Amazon, but it was not controlled at all. And so I was hired to strategize and execute the Amazon strategy for the company. And then recently my role has expanded to kind of greater digital marketplace. So I sit in the wholesale org at the North Face for the Americas, and now I still have Amazon under my umbrella, but we're also looking at our strategic key partners and the rest of wholesale.com and our e-tailers that we partner with to really work with them on strategizing on how to grow their e-com businesses.
Yeah, and maybe if you can share a little bit more for, I mean, again, people can probably guess in their minds. Tell us some of the names in that e-tailing kind of space that you're trying to work and rationalize and strategize with.
Yeah, so some of our strategic key partners are Dick's Sporting Goods, REI, Backcountry.com, which I think a few folks at Pattern are ex-Backcountryers. I also used to work at Backcountry.com. Public Lands is Dick's Sporting Goods, kind of new venture in the outdoor space. And then JD and ASOS we're also looking at as strategic key partners up and coming.
Yeah, it's a lot. So, but I think it's really cool that you guys have thought through that whole piece of, like, you know, when I think about e-commerce or digital commerce as a whole, I think a lot about D2C. I think about e-tailing, I think about marketplaces. You've obviously combined those last two together. What is your relationship with the D2C team?
Yeah, so another part of my role, I would say, is really starting to bridge that gap between our owned.com, the northface.com, and our wholesale partners. So how do we utilize each other? How do we learn from each other? How do we help each other lift each other up? I think traditionally, a lot of brands have kind of had more of like a fight against the D2C teams and the wholesale teams, and so we're really trying to shift that and make it really more of a partnership and a way to leverage each other.
Yeah, I think it's just that consistency is so key, and because we're in the brand control, panel, what are the traditional challenges that a brand like North Face faces? I mean, you're obviously on this journey. You've already solved for some of them, but so maybe we can just take a step back. Maybe when you started your role, what were those challenges specifically related to brand control? And maybe we can get into Amazon specific stuff. And
Sure.
what are those, how have those evolved over time? I know I'm asking like 12 questions at once, but what were those challenges? How have they kind of evolved, and what are the main challenges you face today in terms of controlling the brand?
Yeah, okay, so I'll step back to, the North Face has been around for over 50 years, right? So we have a long history of a wholesale channel. We have a lot of distribution partners. We also have our D2C. We have 50 full price stores. We have 50 outlet stores. We have the northface.com, right? So we're a definite kind of multi-channel brand. And so, over time and evolution, the brand has, expanded that distribution, and throughout different phases of where the markets were at, right, we've made decisions based on that distribution. And that continues today, right? We're constantly evaluating who should be our partners, who's representing our brand well. And so, I think when Amazon kind of came to the forefront of a channel that we really needed to dive into, we really wanted to make sure that we did it right, and we didn't just jump in. And we had kind of seen from other VF brands, other brands in the industry, jumping in too fast, too far, and then having to like rewind and pull back.
Yep.
So we talk a lot about at the North Face, like crawl, walk, run, and so that was really the approach we took with Amazon. And you did ask a few questions, and now I'm answering a few questions. Yeah, as far as distribution, I mean, we're continually cleaning up and understanding, okay, maybe we made this distribution decision 10 years ago, but now it's not working anymore because e-com is a bigger player, because they're not continuing to innovate and represent the brand in the way that we want to, for whatever reason. So yeah, I think that's kind of a continuous project that we're working on to reel in our distribution and control it the best we can.
Yeah, for sure. So the other thing I wanted to kind of dig into is, if you think about brand control and your remit specifically, there are a bunch of levers you can kind of pull. One of those actually relates to assortment and like a product or merchandising strategy. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about some of the levers that you've been able to pull on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, at the North Face, we have a pretty robust segmentation strategy that crosses really the whole company, right? So like I mentioned before, it's a multi-channel company, and we want to give each of those channels kind of opportunity for differentiation. And so we have, really from the beginning of product design development and through the end to go-to-market process, we're constantly evaluating what that assortment means and which types of products we should be giving to certain channels of distribution. So that also plays into how we think about Amazon, and I think that's really allowed us to have that type of tight control over our distribution and how we're viewed in the marketplace.
Yeah. So what could customers in the audience expect? Like if you're on the northface.com versus, dicks.com versus Amazon, maybe you'll notice it, maybe you won't, but what's kind of going behind the scenes in that assortment strategy?
Yeah, I think we can give away these secrets.
Yeah. Sorry, okay.
No,
be as circumspect as you want.
So yeah, we kind of look at our product tiers as good, better, best levels, right?
Yep.
And so our D2C channels, those I'd say have some of the most open assortment, and we really want our pinnacle product experience to live on those channels. And so, from the D2C channel, we really kind of, that best, better, best is what you should be seeing. And then within our wholesale distribution, we have sporting goods channel, we have outdoor specialty, we have Amazon, we have department stores, right? And so each of those, I would say, kind of get certain assortments based on that tiering, but also kind of based on who that consumer is and what they're shopping in that specific store for. Yeah,
that's so amazing. Well, one of the things that I think you've done such a phenomenal job at, you personally, but I'm sure like the umbrella of North Face, is the North Face brand is so strong. It's stayed for that many years, pretty, the integrity is high in terms of that target consumer. And then, maybe for people like me, more the aspirational consumer of the North Face. I've got to think all of the effort that your team puts into product photography and design and curation and all that stuff, it's got to be pretty hard. And I'm sure all the brands out, in the audience have a similar dilemma of part of brand control is content control and narrative control and integrity to the customer. How do you keep up with that? Did you guys maintain it centrally? Do you have a bunch of sellers that also update content? Like, are you constantly weeding out rogue content? Help us understand that piece of it.
Yeah, good question. That is definitely a complex web, I would say. And as everyone knows in here, content is king. And so as you know, I work with all of our wholesale partners and our Amazon 3P sellers. The probably biggest number one thing they're asking for from a digital perspective is more and better digital assets.
Yep.
And so I think there's, that one piece of it that is how are we as a company thinking about budgeting for and creating the full funnel to execute on those assets. And then there's also, how do we control what ends up getting out there? So for example, we're working with like a data asset management platform, and we're also looking at, okay, this is also the one we've been using for the last 10 years.
Yep.
We probably need an upgrade. So then what are those options? How do we implement it quickly enough to stay up with it? And then the third element is the customization, right? Different wholesale partners have different consumers, like I talked about. So how do we make sure they're getting what they need that fits their consumer, but also that is brand right and still true to who the North Face is?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say work in progress on that one, and it probably always will be.
Well, I've got a follow-up question, but I feel like I'm selfish here, and I'm like taking all the time for myself. So I know we do have a mic runner in the room. I want to be able to open this up to a broader audience, literally, and allow y'all to ask questions of Molly. She's an expert in this space, and we're so glad that she was able to come. So maybe hold up your hand if you have a question for Molly while we're kind of getting situated on that front. Maybe just let me ask you one other follow-up question to that. You're kind of in this unique intersection where VF owns so many iconic brands, and certainly not all the same target demographics, so there's that to consider. How would you rate yourself, not yourself, but like the organization, I guess, at kind of like learning from each other and sharing best practices, whether it's around content, whether it's around distribution? Do you guys have like, I don't know, a big summit that you come together? Are there Slack channels? Is it pretty firewalled? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, so one of the things I have actually really enjoyed about VF and really respect VF for is that they truly let their brands be themselves,
Yep.
right? So we really are very autonomous. We make our own decisions. VF gives suggestions. They give back-end support, but the brands really are pretty separate. However, and it's actually funny, I bet people relate to this in the room, when it comes to Amazon, we're very collaborative. It's such a complex business. It's new for a lot of these brands. And so, I would say we are all kind of constantly talking to each other, asking questions. And it's really nice because we don't have to hold back information that we might with, another brand in the industry that is not part of VF.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely learn from each other. But I would say VF kind of lets us go to our own devices.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, well, I saw a hand out here in the audience. I don't know, again, where the mic runners is. Hustle up. Okay, we got one over here in the middle.
All right. First off, thank you for your time today. I heard you mention that you guys have multiple 3P sellers. I'm assuming that's Amazon. Just curious the strategy behind that rather than kind of managing your own brand solely or working directly with Amazon.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'll give you a bit of an anecdote. When I had managed a 1P business at my previous company before the North Face. It was a 1P, 3P hybrid Amazon strategy. And when I was interviewing at the North Face, like I said, they really didn't have an Amazon strategy yet. It was in its infancy stages. And the VP of sales and the senior director of specialty, I was interviewing, and we were like fighting over what the strategy should be. I'm like, you got to go 1P now. You're missing the boat. They're like, I don't think so. We don't want to be 1P. But anyways, they hired me anyway, even though we were fighting during the interview, which I actually really appreciated because, I'm like, if these guys they want someone to push back and push the status quo, which was great. But anyways, so they really wanted to maintain a 3P strategy only and not sell to 1P, which, again, I didn't really agree with at the beginning. But then as I started really doing some research and understanding what they were trying to do, I was able to really buy into it, and we've been able to have a very successful business. And I think I kind of talk about it in 3 categories or pillars of why it really works for us as a brand. And one is quantitative, one's qualitative, one's kind of capabilities wise. So quantitatively, again, like the North Face has been around for a long time. We run on a pre-book system that as many of you in the room know, I'm sure, negotiating with Amazon terms every year, right, can be challenging. And so when we work with our 3P partners, we have consistency in the discounts that we give on the orders that we sell to them, right? So quantitatively, it's actually more profitable for us. Qualitatively, we're talking about brand control. So if you don't sell directly to Amazon 1P, they can't price match, right? And so that's something that's very important to our brand, and I can talk more about this, but we have a very strict MAP policy. Price parity is very important to us, especially in this multi-channel system. And so with the 3Ps, they follow our MAP policy, and we don't have to worry about that price matching. Third, from the capabilities, I mentioned it a second ago, but the pre-books, that's something that our company has done for a long time and really relies on, right? And so with that 3P model, it's much easier for us to execute on product availability and product ordering. So that's maybe long-winded, and I can talk about who our 3P sellers are if you want to, but I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, one more here, and then, back in the middle.
Hi, I love North Face, let me just say, and I recently made a purchase actually from your website because the assortment I was looking for was not offered by REI, and now
you know why.
Yeah, well now I know why.
Yeah.
And it's hearing that that's intentional, that makes a lot of sense to me. But my company is in the manufacturing space, and for the last 40 years we've been almost exclusively B2B, and now we're expanding into D2C, particularly in e-commerce. And there's a lot of anxiety amongst the traditional sales team about ostracizing your traditional distribution partners as you grow your own channel of sales. So I'm wondering if that's something you've had to deal with at North Face as you've grown your own proprietary website, and how you navigate those retailers that you have historical relationships with and keep them engaged. Yeah.
So I guess yes, that issue or challenge has come up in two big ways, or in the time that I've been with the North Face. And one was when we didn't have an Amazon strategy, and a wide assortment with pricing all over the place was showing up on the platform. And so we had to really, that was one of the things that really sparked wanting a controlled strategy on the platform, was to appease our other partners and create that price parity like I talked about. And then, with our TNF.com, we call the North Face like TNF, so TNF.com, we definitely, have had those conversations with retailers about, is TNF.com going to cannibalize our business? And vice versa, really. So I think part of that is the segmentation strategy of product. That's one response we've had to that. Another is creating better price parity. And then I think lastly, like I talked about, even this role that was, created, or this new org within wholesale, to really try and bridge that gap between wholesale and our direct business, and kind of become friends and utilize each other, use information, use best practices, and really focus on how do we lift each other up. So ongoing, and I'm sure there will be other things that come up, but we're definitely trying to tackle them as they do, and make it the best kind of clean marketplace for each channel as we can.
Yeah, I think that's really, so many good insights. One of the things, and again, feel free to raise your hand if you have other questions, but one of the things you mentioned I think is really awesome is, hey, we found a thing that works for us. We don't necessarily think it works for everybody, and so we're pretty comfortable, and we think we've gotten to a modicum of stability in our marketplace efforts today, which I just think is on point. I think one of the challenges that we've run into, and we've deployed third-party authorized networks. We've done a single seller, at Pattern, we've done single seller exclusive kind of representation. We've done hybrid representation with brands. We've actually done managed service where they continue to sell 1P. So we've kind of, I love that. We span the gambit of, there's not just one kind of shoe that fits every kind of strategy. One of the challenges of a multi-seller strategy really comes down to advertising, just because of the function, the way that Amazon is set up. You can certainly run DSP with multiple sellers. You can run sponsored brands with multiple sellers. when you come to kind of what I would call the meat and potatoes of Amazon advertising and sponsor brands, you can't really, like, you have to own the buy box to do the advertising. And then if everyone is kind of bidding on the North Face as a branded term to try to get traffic to their listing, you inadvertently could be running up or having just friendly fire, crossfire within the bidding strategies. How do you guys think about that, or how do you solve for it? Or you just, do they fund the advertising? Do you do it? Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'd say it's kind of a hybrid model. So yeah, we use the North Face funds to do kind of that advertising that's available to us on a brand level.
Yes.
So that's been successful. And then we also have, we have 14 third-party authorized sellers that we partner with. And I think I hope it's unique. I'm proud of it. We have a very close relationship with them. Yeah. We talk to these 3Ps every day, every week, and we're constantly talking about business, talking about marketing. How do we pivot? How do we optimize, right? And so I think, one thing we've seen that's kind of just naturally occurred over the last few years of this strategy, and my sales manager who's in the audience, he came up with this, but I would say we have 3 kind of buckets of third-party sellers. We have kind of our core sellers who also have probably brick and mortar stores. They've been around a long time. They're a great partner. They don't violate MAP, but they kind of just sell and probably aren't investing a ton in marketing. We're fine with that. Then we have kind of our base dealers that are trying to grow, trying to get better. Maybe they are starting to invest, but they haven't really become really sophisticated yet. Then we have our sophisticated partners, and those are the ones that are really investing in marketing, and they're getting to be very savvy within the space. And they have software that are looking at what the other 3P sellers are doing. They're constantly looking at once chase orders for product. They're looking at how to optimize their marketing, which products they should be doing it on, what the competition is doing. So I would say it's kind of really like playing out a little bit, honestly, how I want it to. A lot of brands will talk about segmenting between product within 3Ps. My belief is that one of the reasons Amazon has been so successful is that they've created this competitive, healthy marketplace, right? And I want our 3Ps to be competing against each other to be the best that they can, and that's gonna help us optimize as a brand our Amazon success.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, I'm not seeing, I am actually seeing a bunch of hands. So let's go to here again. I get selfish and want to ask more questions. Here in the front row, Brett, I don't know where you went.
Question here.
Oh, sorry, I can't see you.
Right here.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe a follow-up question just regarding advertising. You mentioned, Molly, that you kind of sit in between wholesale and DTC. Have you found any healthy balance between performance marketing, broadly speaking, on all channels, and how we're not competing against our wholesale partners?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of digging into that, and that's definitely one of the things in this new role that we want to understand better. And I would say we have some outside consultants that come in too to look at that. And I think probably like any other brand, we have kind of our brand marketing level that is really uplifting all of our sales channels, and then we're doing lower funnel marketing ad spend that is more channel specific or more product specific. From the research that we've been able to kind of gather so far, it does look like the advertising that we do on one channel or one platform is actually helping the other platforms and channels as well. So I would say, yeah, at this point, we want more information. We want to understand that better. We're looking at it. But so far, we do believe that the ad spend on one channel is benefiting all.
Love it. Okay, so another question up front, yeah.
Hi. This is kind of a random question. I'm not necessarily sure if it's in your wheelhouse, but one thing that I've seen a lot of brands doing is exploring a closed loop system and really thinking about their environmental impact. So with your partnerships and when you are getting your product to different retailers and sellers, how often are you thinking about your environmental impact?
Yeah, great question. So, the North Face, I would say, is very committed to that in general. So we're looking at it from the full supply chain, how we can be more responsible from a sustainability viewpoint. And yeah, I would say some of our partners, probably all of our partners actually, are also really looking at that. So I think it's that conversation continues to become more and more at the forefront of everything we talk about. And I would say that, in my specific role, which it is a little bit outside of what I really do or am focused on, but in my role, when I was talking about those more and better digital assets, that's something that all of our partners are asking for is, can you give us, digital assets, videos, lifestyle imagery, content, copy that is talking about your sustainability practices. So yeah, something very important to the North Face, and now we're trying to figure out how to best tell that story.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this on? Okay. So you spoke a little bit about your assortment strategy across your different trade partners and the different channels in which they operate, kind of your good, better, best, and then also the fit to the specific customers. I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on what your experience has been in being able to enforce that assortment strategy and manage authorized third-party sellers and arbitrage activity, and kind of how you've gone about resourcing and enforcing that type of strategy and what type of successes you've had.
I would love to talk about that. I've done so much work on that. Yes. So, I think there's a few different layers, right? So we, like you said, we have segmentation strategy or assortment strategy with product. And then we also do a ton of investment and work on removing rogue and gray market sellers from the marketplace. And so we use a couple agencies to monitor Amazon, to monitor the online marketplace outside of Amazon. And then we work with internal lawyers, and we also retain an external legal partners to then enforce those rogue and gray market sellers. And then from an assortment strategy, that goes all the way from, our B2B site, how our customers order product. They're only allowed to view what's offered to them in their assortment. And then, so it's from sell-in, it's communicating IMAP policies. We just revamped our online dealer policy and our IMAP policy, which I think needs to be kind of re-looked at every 2 years as this market is adjusting and adapting so quickly. We have agencies, we have internal teams that we're all kind of coming together to enforce this from the sell-in and then out when it's actually in the marketplace.
And one of the questions I have is, if you don't get to be part of the Sacrosanct 14, the chosen.
Yeah, we call them, they have the golden ticket.
Do they? Yeah. If you're not the Willy Wonka, golden ticket, do you get a lot of pushback from that? Do you get a lot of people complaining? Do you ever have people say, well, I won't sell you in retail if I don't get access? Like, what are the bottom, that sounds terrible to say bottom feeders, but what are they,
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so we do have pretty regularly retailers or accounts that are either authorized accounts that just don't sell on Amazon or just out there that want to be partners with us. But I would say that, we have a very strict, filter on who we allow to distribute our product, and that's not just on the Amazon platform, that's in general. As I was talking about before, our product premiumness and how we show up in the market is very important to us. And our existing distribution, that a lot of them we've had years and years of experience with or partnership with. So we have a pretty strict filter on that. And I think we feel good enough and proud enough of our brand that we can do that. And then I will just add, though, too, for the authorized partners that, maybe might not be so happy that they're not Amazon partners, the fact that we have controlled that marketplace and controlled the pricing and creating that price parity, that does allow them to sell more in their own channels. So that's been a positive.
Yeah, it's huge. One of the aspects of brand control is really around everything from what do you do with returns, how do you prevent gray market, diverted inventory, what do you do with counterfeit? I don't know how much your team has to do with that specifically. Do you have any thoughts around what you're doing to kind of maintain control on that front?
Yeah, so the great thing about VF Corp is, we have a counterfeit team that works for VF that kind of across all of our brands, they're really working on counterfeit. And it's great because they really partner with us too on all the efforts that we're doing for rogue sellers and gray market sellers.
Yep.
So it's kind of, a big collaboration. We have, I think, a monthly meeting with all the VF brands and the brand enforcement managers and the counterfeit team to kind of all work together on that effort. It's a big lift.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What about returns? I mean, do you see a lot of leakage into the market, or do you see people trying to buy forward? I don't know if you actually use Amazon as a discounting platform at all anyway, or if there are those arbitrage. Do you end up with those sorts of issues?
So I guess I can answer that two ways. First of all, we're very proud of this. 80% of our sales on Amazon are full price. So we're very proud of that and want to continue that. So it's definitely not a discount channel. That's not how we view it. And then, as far as returns, it's actually our 3P sellers, right, that are getting the returns for Amazon. Like, their main job is to manage that inventory.
Yeah.
And so they've actually started to create in their brick and mortar stores, like outlets. They're donating products. They're getting really creative about how to handle those. So I think in the beginning, when we first started the strategy, they weren't used to that many returns, but now they've kind of all figured out how to maintain that cadence of what to do with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Brett, you have some more questions here?
Hi. One of the most difficult things over the last couple of years that I've had to manage in terms of MAP and price parity is how to handle like platform exclusive deals like Prime Day and things like that, and still maintaining a good relationship with your other retail partners. Do you have any insights around how you guys kind of handle that relationship?
Yeah, it's something that we've had to be really, I would say, strict on. We actually, the brand took a big stance on that a year ago, and we went from, I think, 150 promo days between discontinued or end of season periods and promo periods to about 25 last year. So we've really pulled back on that, which was obviously a big risk for the company, but we actually saw it is still an increase in bottom line and much better margins, right, from our retail partners. So, it's something that we continue to kind of talk about, and how do you appease your retail partner, but do what's right for the brand from a full price standpoint and premiumness standpoint. And I think some retailers are getting creative too. I just had a conversation with one retailer yesterday who said, okay, well, now you can't participate in our big sale, but maybe there's something that we could do with discontinued products on our outlet channel and drive traffic to that during the sale, because that's still within your MAP policy. So I maintain that I think it's really important to just stay true, be consistent with that MAP policy, but find nuggets of areas and opportunities for your retailer to still capture that consumer that's looking for a discount.
Love it. All right, Brett, I don't know where you ended up, but it's, again, if anyone has any questions for Molly, this is a fantastic time. You can tell she has a ton of experience, and I love that you've been sharing your insights here. One of the questions that I've been thinking about is, I've been listening here on you go through this, is I feel like we've definitely steered the conversation more toward Amazon, toward the 3P sellers, toward a lot of that piece. But again, your remit truly is around multiple platforms and marketplaces and Etailers specifically. So what kind of, how has that strategy evolved? And what kind of support do you lend to those? What sort of requests do you get? What sort of challenges? Let's talk about that side of the business for a minute.
Yeah, so again, it's pretty new for us, but we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and I think a lot of the bigger brands are not really talking to, I kind of talk about there's like traditional brick and mortar wholesale, and then there's even traditional digital wholesale, right? And how do we get to progressive digital wholesale? And I think first of all, retailers have been just happy that we're starting to talk to them about their e-com businesses, and everyone's seeing the data, right? You have to lean in there. So I think the response to it has been really positive. And then I would say that some of the big requests, as I mentioned before, more and better digital assets. How do we deliver it to them in a more customized, aggregated way? And then I would say the other things that we're getting are around, I just lost my train of thought. Review syndication
Yeah.
was one kind of easy lever that we could pull early on to kind of boost sales. And I can talk more about that if needed. And then again, this price parity map policies, how are we going to monitor and enforce that? And then I think I've gotten a couple of questions about it, but also search advertising. How do you navigate search advertising when you're competing with thenorthface.com and Amazon? And how do we find the nuggets and areas of opportunity for each retailer to kind of flourish? And then another big topic has been dropship strategy as well. So that's a whole other thing to go down. But yeah, those are just some examples as we kind of like navigate this topics that are coming up that we need to kind of dig into. And then, we're really looking to get to the point where we're going, okay, now we have these foundational things kind of a better handle on them. And now how do we really get to the next level and do test and learns, get creative, and start really understanding what is our partnership with you going to look like from a digital standpoint in 5-10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have some digital native brands or retailers in that space, like a Backcountry, right, where the assortment is kind of the assortment. Although they have multiple digital properties as well. I don't know if they're allowed to sell the North Face on some of those other sub-properties. But if you think about a traditional retailer that you are supporting the online arm, so to speak, of an REI or a Dick's or whatever, do you have visibility into that assortment that they're doing versus the brick and mortar and the digital? Do they do test assortments? Are you largely like shielded from that and it's just they determine it? What does the assortment and merchandising strategy look between in-store and online for those brands?
Yeah, so some of our accounts are really, and yes, we do have visibility. Some of our accounts are really good at having like an ideal mix of, okay, here's my brick and mortar assortment, here's my online assortment, here's my dropship assortment. Maybe even here's my Amazon assortment. Other dealers are just buying and putting it up on all channels, which is fine too. But yeah, I think we're really trying to help them understand what are the overlaps, but also what are the differentiators between each channel, which products over-index online, which under-index, and vice versa, so that we can start to get a lot more prescribed and efficient with the inventory in each of the channels.
Yeah, and maybe to that point, we got some more questions, so maybe I'll shut up for a minute and we'll come over here. But one of the challenges of both the e-tail strategy plus an Amazon strategy that has 14 sellers is that there are, in theory, inventory constraints or capacity constraints, especially if you run into supply chain issues where you are forced to prioritize which inventory gets to go to which channels to provide the coverage that you need and prevent you going out of stock. How do you guys think about that? Or have you not had that many supply chain issues?
So I mentioned before, the pre-books are super important to us,
Yeah.
right? So we really work with our partners from really, I don't know if everyone in the audience knows, I don't know if this is apparel outdoor industry speak, so I apologize, but, from sketch review to proto review to sales meeting, I mean, we're engaging with our biggest partners right from the beginning of that to start forecasting very, very early on. So that's a big piece of it. And then, yes, like everyone else, we've definitely had supply chain issues, and I think we're scraping away as best we can to try and block and tackle and get as much product as we can available to our dealers. But it's certainly been a challenge for us, just like everyone else.
Amazing. And for the folks that are not in apparel here, like, where are you at? What pre-booking? Where are you at in the season right now? Is everything like? Well, let's see. Are we in?
Yeah,
fall
so
of
we are
23
selling
right now,
we're selling into our partners now spring 23 goods, and we just had a big partner in yesterday to look at fall 23 sketch review or proto. I can't even remember, but one of them. But so we're working a year and a half out.
Long lead times.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think we had a question over here. Maybe.
Hello.
Well, I don't know where the mic is, but
over here. Hey, you mentioned you've touched on how you collaborate with other brands in the VF portfolio. But I'm assuming that there's some overlap in the assortment and potential for competition within those brands. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of portfolio strategy that enables you to define swim lanes when you're advertising.
For advertising, yeah. So we do yes, the best example I can give you is on Amazon and Google search advertising, we use negative key terms, right? So the North Face has a very big backpack business. JanSport is a backpack business. And so when we're advertising or buying those search terms, we're putting in, JanSport as a negative search term so that we're not bidding on each other's keywords, basically. So probably that, yeah.
It is tricky for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's another question over here as well.
Yeah, Molly, thanks for coming today. I appreciate your comments and your explanation about what's going on. To some regards, probably the suckiest time ever to be acquired, given that it happened right after COVID went nutso here in the United States and around the world. But VF, of course, has almost 1,500 stores nationwide, right? And so your mix changed almost instantaneously in spite of COVID. Our VF is roughly, according to your annual report, VF is moving around 45% through its stores. Do you see your mix changing as you go forward now that we're quote unquote out of COVID? Do you see North Face's rev being about 45% in store, or do you see it going with your independent dealers, being a mix online? What does that mix look like, you think, say, 2 years, 5 years from now?
Yeah, so we have had at the VF for the last 3-ish years, a huge initiative has been digital transformation, right? And so we have put a lot of resources and focus around our .com businesses. So yes, I think we want to see all channels grow, like I talked about, and we will do that. But yes, our mix of our reliance on our NorthFace.com business will certainly be prioritized over the next few years. And also, an example is this org that they've created within the wholesale channel to also be working with our retail partners to grow their e-com businesses as well.
Love it. One of the things we haven't really touched into, and I wanted to speak to in the last couple of minutes, is I know you kind of have a remit for North America, but I know you have counterparts around the world. Pattern works with the North Face in Europe. Today, do you all collaborate on a global strategy? I know there are some, like I said, the shoe doesn't fit for everything, but how are you all thinking about global control of the brand across different distribution geographies and functions?
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of our biggest opportunities right now as, we are all working on figuring out how to have a more collaborative global strategy. We do have a global digital team that just formed probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago that sits in Denver at the North Face. And that's a rapidly growing team. And then, I think across marketplaces, there's a huge opportunity there to start collaborating and strategizing more together. I think over the next few years, you'll start to see a lot more of that from us.
Yeah. Well, if you have other questions for Molly, maybe you'll see her in the halls or something like that before she has to run off. My last question is, there are a lot of brands here, obviously, today. They're in a similar predicament that you are either in today or you were several years ago when you started down this journey. They're trying to figure out how to control their brand. They're trying to figure out how to turn off unauthorized sellers or say no to distributors that are actually quite valuable to them. They're pushing new initiatives. Any advice, I guess, from the Tales of the Crypt, as you've gone through this yourself?
Yeah, I think, I guess 2 small things. I said one before, but run, walk, or crawl, walk, run for sure. Like, don't bite off more than you can chew.
Hopefully not run, walk, crawl.
Have to, yeah.
Dying slowly.
And then have to pedal back. I think that's a mistake. So take your time. And then another thing that I like to talk about, just running an Amazon business, digital marketplace, you have to be resourceful, right? So if you go down one path and it's not working, you got to be able to pivot, figure something else out, ask questions, be creative. The only consistency with Amazon is change. So I guess that.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming today, Molly. We've learned a lot from you and appreciate you sharing and imparting some wisdom. Let's give her a hand.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely fabulous.